Sleep is where we go to. Okay. Sleep is where we go to run away from our problems. I let my head down and I feel calm.
Yeah, you have to look in here though.
Okay. Sleep is where we go to run away from our problems. I let my head down and I feel calm. We bought refugees in this country. We just bought. We got plane. Okay. For example, when you see the plane like that and you feel like you can't travel, it's always problem.
This is Mohammed. He's 18 and he came to the UK from the Kurdistan region of Iraq 3 years ago to seek asylum as an unaccompanied minor. I met Mohammed online in June last year through a weekly drama project I was running with Phosphorus Theatre Company. And this is Saeed. He came to the UK from Afghanistan when he was a teenager to seek asylum on his own. He works with me at Phosphorus Theatre and is also my husband. Together, over the summer, the three of us spent some time reflecting on the practice research I've been working on throughout the last year, a project called Stories for Sleeping. Saeed had assisted me as a workshop leader and Mohammed had taken part as a contributor. Through this research, I've been exploring how performance practices establish forms of care within and across communities of refugee young people outside of structures of the state. Care in the context of crisis. Some parts of this film are about what I did, others are stories about friendship, workshopping material that became stories, and then there's a bit about hope. And this is me. I'm Kate. A surprise bout of rain interrupting our conversation. That wouldn't have happened if we'd stayed on Zoom, but I wanted to capture the asides, the moments in between, the stuff that happens on the edges of my research. Spending a few days on campus meant I was inviting Mohammed into my world.
Okay, Kate. What's made you to help the refugee young people, or like all of the refugees in England, when you was born like an English lady and you didn't have any refugee cousin? What's made you to become this Kate? Okay, but I can't hear you. I really can't hear you.
I'll be much louder. So when I was the same age as probably you when you came here, when I was about 16, I became really interested in working with refugees. I met somebody who had come from Eritrea on his own when he was a teenager, and it felt like when I met him, a door opened that gave me this interest, and that door has never shut. Do you see what I mean? So the door opened to the interest, and that door has stayed open for more than 10 years now.
Okay.
There's a lot more to say on that story, of course, but it started with connection, friendship, solidarity. These themes are what drives the Stories for Sleeping project. I delivered about 30 workshops to over 70 refugee young people living in different parts of the UK, and they created sleep stories for their peers. Translated into home languages alongside English, the storytelling process invited young people to articulate their lived experience of displacement beyond the confines of bordering practices that position their narratives as risky, messy, irrelevant, incredible, or too nuanced to comprehend. Created by young people, sometimes in collaboration with me, and almost always on Zoom, the stories range from messages of welcome to words of advice, traditional bedtime stories, reflections on childhood, and nostalgic thoughts.
أشعر بالحماس مثل الأم التي تلد طفلها الأول.
When I was a child, my mom would try to help me sleep. She would sing for me a sweet song to help me relax. It would go like la 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 la, and slowly my eyes would shut.
The human eye cannot see in total darkness. It will take them several hours to fully adjust in pitch black, but only if there is a small amount of light, perhaps from the moon, shining bright and distant, or the stars trillions of miles away. We don't need much light, the smallest amount will do. It is amazing how little light we need in order to see.
If nothing else works, then you can count 1, 2, 3, 4,
girl started
5,
singing as she skipped through the
6,
flowers.
7.
And suddenly, she saw the most amazing thing. A giant elephant appeared in front of her. She thought the elephant would eat her, but really it just wanted to play.
Shh. It's time for sleeping. Shut your eyes or the wolf will eat you up. Yum yum yum. Shh. Close your eyes until the sunrise. That's it.
Was that it?
Yeah.
Perfect.
Okay. When I was a little boy, my mom and sometimes my dad will tell me that a wolf will come to take me somewhere far, far, far away if I didn't go to sleep. It would make us all so scared. We would quickly shut our eyes and go to sleep. I know it sounds so cruel and scary, but it worked. My mom would say, go to sleep, otherwise the wolf is going to appear in the front of your eyes. Even now, I still think of the wolf, soft grey fur and a big red eyes. They told me 1 billion times and it was so clear in my mind. I swear to God, when I was younger, I would need to pee in the night, but I was too scared to open my eyes. I would say to my mom, Mom, how will I pee if I can't open my eyes? She told me she was joking. There is no wolf, so go and have a pee. But the next night, she would tell me again, and I would believe it. Gurgana shame, gurgana shame, khawailiyab kame, khawailiyab kame. You know, when you see a picture of something, or smell mehek, or in English clothes, or taste doma, it takes you back to when you were a child, 6 or 7 years old. You haven't felt that for 10 years, but suddenly you are home again. My dad would play me Kurdish music to help me sleep, and I like to listen to it now. I know how it feels to be lying in a bed with your eyes open, feeling like your future is connected to one piece of paper that will give you freedom. You will become a different person with that piece of paper. And until then, it's hard to breathe out. It's hard to feel strong sometimes. That's why I think about the wolf and shut my eyes tight, remembering that the sun will rise tomorrow.
Shh. Keep your eyes closed until the sunrise. Have a good night. I really like that part. I really like that part. You know, I even have to pause to see if someone was actually with me.
There's a part when he mentioned my mom, he just reminded me with my mom. When I used to be within her arms and she was tying my head and telling my son go to sleep, it's too late, and telling me stories to get sleep. I almost forgot all the things, but by hearing this lovely story, I get remembered all the things that happened between me and my mom. So this is a lovely story. I would love to be.
I think I can communicate this story because when I was a child and my mom tried to put me on sleep, and she said something about the scary animal or something like this come and take you if you don't sleeping. That's why remind me that story.
Listening to this record helps me a lot because sometimes I'm having a hard time to sleep, but since I listen to this sleeping story, it helps me to have my peaceful sleep. Like, it's not too long, but I think it's okay for me.
I really like the mixing the languages because I think it showed how other languages and other countries can have the same effects with another ways. And I think he showed how stories can affect our real lives, especially pure-hearted and innocent children.
Furthermore, when I was listening to the song, even though it was like in a different language, in Kurdish, I think, I didn't understand what it's mean, but I felt it is like a peaceful lullaby song. It's like for babies to sleep. And I think back in Sudan, we used to like hold babies in this way, and then we sing to them or in their bed, and yeah, they feel relaxed and calm.
I loved that the creators of the stories were engaging with each other through Instagram. When rebuilding hope and sustaining networks of care amidst a backdrop of ongoing rupture, moments of speaking to one's own circumstances with the intention of being heard revealed itself as meaningful, both for the storyteller and the listener.
Thing, wallahi, I remember when I was, because when I came to this country, it was my, they just in the beginning they just took me to the small village, and I didn't see any Kurdish or Afghani or any refugee, to be honest, people around there. I thought I'm the only young refugee in this country. But when they listen to our story, they will be like, oh, look at this guy. He had the same story like me.
Exactly.
He lived in the Sahara like me, but now he got a better life.
Exactly.
Do you know what I'm talking about?
That's why it's important for us
it will
to
be
speak
like
to
powerful
those people.
to them.
When you tell a story to, like the way we did in this project, Stories for Sleeping, you are in charge of the story. So you're the creator, you're the writer, you're the person who's gonna tell it to other people. And in this place, you are in control. You are basically the boss of your story. So you tell the bits that you want to tell, you talk about things that you want to talk. Maybe sometimes for being creative, you might add things that didn't actually happen or say things in a different way to be creative, to make it into a good story. So it's all under your hand, under your control. Whereas, for example, if you go to the Home Office and you talk about your story, which is the case that you give to the Home Office, it's very difficult because you cannot talk about everything, and sometimes it's because you're scared that people will ask you questions, or sometimes it's like things that you don't want to talk about, but you will still have to talk about it, because in that place you're not in control of the story, you're not the boss of your story, you're being driven by someone else in the Home Office who asks you to talk.
I want to tell them why I came to this country, but not everything. Why you ask me about like? Do you know what I mean? Something is special. Something is you don't need to ask me about, and you don't need to know about right now. Because do you know what I mean?
Yeah. Whereas in this scenario, you want people to know, like your brothers, for example, the brothers who come after us. We want them to know as much as possible, and here are people who are like you, and they're doing well. So like we want to inspire them by listening to these stories and like motivate them. Lift them up and give them some hope. That's why we do this work.
If I know some young refugee people listen to my story right now, I feel my feel will be so great, because I feel like I'm helping someone now to feel better. Do you know what I'm talking about?
The stories Mohammed told echoed others I'd heard before, of friendship, moments of kindness, instances of mutual support from housemates, college friends, strangers whose voices sounded the same as his. Quiet, subtle gestures of care that were perhaps unremarkable, but nonetheless memorable in propelling him forward. In fact, the story of the wolf itself emerged several times throughout the project, sometimes as a cat or a monster. I found this repetition comforting.
And then it's dangerous as well. Sometimes when you sleep on the bed and you're moving, if you drop, I swear to God, you'll get a problem.
Has that happened to you? Have you fallen off the bed?
From Greece.
From Greece? What happened?
The hotels from Greece. It was like second times, I think, to sleep on the bed. But the bed was so different from Greece. It was just like how to tell you, like 2 floors.
What, like bunk beds? Like one bed on top of the other?
Present on the way, sorry.
Yeah. I know what you're talking about. Bunk beds, bunk beds, yeah.
Exactly.
You have one bed on top of the other.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It was scary bad and in that time, but for now, it's just funny story when I was telling my friend and the other people.
Yeah, because like now we can laugh about it, but I can imagine in that time being very,
that time. And then if you tell the people on the way what's happening to you, they really look at you like stupid. Do you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So you have to show.
As I followed Syed and Mohammed tell each other stories on the theme of sleep, I found myself getting lost. I listened to how half a sentence could be used to sweep over reams of experience. I know what you mean. Yeah. An aside that provides a shortcut in a story. You've been to prison too, right? In these stories, they were repackaging language of trauma and narrating their storied lives differently. Without the burden of proof, stories emerge that not everyone will understand, but that will validate many. The stories form a legacy of care, a chain of gestures that are passed through those who have been youth on the move too. Saeed's role as a facilitator holds all this at once, and I observe, to quote from migration studies scholar Rachel Rosen, solidarity is being forged beyond my gaze.
There was a boy who came to this country for a safer life. His home was very far away. He didn't know how many miles away, but it was a lot. He made a long journey that will stay in his heart forever and remain in his bones because it made him who he is today. When he arrived, he wasn't sure what his future would be like. Everywhere his head turned was something new and different. A strange language he had only heard in American movies.
Can you phone him?
No. It's a great camera.
The boy wasn't alone in this new country. He followed the trail of voices that sounded like home and found himself in a restaurant with people whose tongue he could understand. They fed him rice, lamb, okra, and bread as soft as pillows. They poured him tea and spoke about family. They put money in his hand, and even though he tried to give it back, they put their hands up and told him he would eat there for free.
One day, many months later, he was walking in his neighborhood and he saw two men a little bit older than him who looked lost and confused. He thought of the trail he had once followed and realized these strangers were on the same trail, looking for a face they might know or a voice they might recognize. They spoke in the new language, in English. "We want to meet Kurdish people," they said. "I'm a Kurdish," said the boy. "You are Kurdish?" said the strangers. "I'm a Kurdish." The boy was laughing now. The strangers hadn't eaten their traditional food for 3 or 4 months. So the boy took them to his home and made them okra and lamb chops and the most delicious rice.
Eventually, these friends left the city and moved many hours away. They told the boy to call them if he was ever nearby. But the boy didn't need to. He told them that when they get money or car or learn the tongue of this new place, they must help people who are new. He hoped they understood that they were part of the trail now, and their hearts had to be open for others to find them. The boy had learned from people before him to help others. If they hadn't helped him, then he wouldn't be able to help now.
Do you recognize the boy? Maybe you have felt like him or helped someone like him. The boy is me.
Mohammed told me that listening to Syed read his words made him feel proud. He said it was like when your mum gives you a head massage to help you sleep. You know how to do it, how to move your fingers up and down your scalp, but it doesn't feel as nice if you do it yourself. That's what listening to the stories is like, he said. Someone else is telling our story and we can just listen. So Syed shared one of his stories with us.
The first night I spent in the UK, I wore jeans and hoodie. I'd never worn jeans in Afghanistan, only pair and tumban. On my journey, I had to blend in, so I got used to wearing underpants and tight jeans, very unfamiliar. That night, I felt lonely. It was strange, but I was safe. Better than the 8 months I'd just had. There were 2 single beds in the room, but I was alone. I met the owner of the other bed the next day. He was from my place, Afghanistan. But not just that, he was from my town too. We could have met at the masjid, or the Mela, or the Shiriah Parlour, but we didn't. We met in London, in North Wembley. He looked so comfortable. He was in his Afghan clothes, his Peran Tomban, and it reminded me of home. He read my face and offered me a set of clothes from the wardrobe we shared. I felt like myself again and saw a glimpse of my life before. I couldn't go to school for months and months and months. I'd stay at home and watch Hindi movies all day long, over and over and over again. I should have been learning English, but my head was too full. In Afghanistan, we have a saying that goes, Dil badil radare. One heart has a way to another. We have a connection without needing to speak. That was what it felt like with the foster brother I had found myself with. An understanding, brotherhood, love. That was 8.5 years ago. I'm training to be an engineer now, and he's a barber. And you've still got that Dil badil radar spark, innit?
Yeah, big man.
You see that, fam? That's a bit cringe, bro. انت الدروغة خدام I've talked about different parts of that story at different times. When I think about sleep in relation to this project, I find myself back in that room in North Wembley with Wahid. Sleeping in the little beds on our own just felt so weird. So he would take our duvets and pillows and put them on the floor in between, and we would lie next to each other. We slept like that for months because it felt like home, and he was to become my new family. When we did all these workshops, I could really see that so many of the young people we met felt so alone. Having to sleep on their own in a bedroom didn't feel like independence or private. It just felt lonely. The stories do something really specific because they try to understand that feeling. That's why they're not really made for the general public. It's not really for them. And if they want to understand all this stuff, there are maybe other ways they can do that. Me and Muhammad would find ourselves saying Dil badil radar to each other, or how he says it in Kurdish, and we'd really mean it.
That's like Afghani language, but in Kurdish language we say Dil awanidla. It means if you even don't talk, maybe understand what's in your heart. Because it's happening to me as well. Like, for example, when you're trying to ask me something, I just cut your question and I say, oh, I know what you mean. I know what you mean.
There's the connection with the heart.
Exactly.
Without, you don't have to speak to know what the other person is thinking or like what they're feeling.
Exactly. Or some people will say like, I know you like back off my hands. You don't need to ask. I know what you're gonna say. Do you know what I mean? How about you, Said? How's your feel? You was a refugee when you came to this country, but now you got a passport and everything, alhamdulillah. You got your work, you got a wife and everything. So how's your
passport though? He doesn't have
No, don't worry. You can traveling and you can do everything like English people.
I can't travel.
Don't worry about travel then.
I don't have papers.
You got work.
Yeah.
You can't work.
Yeah.
You can't make money. You
Yeah.
can't drive in cars.
Yeah.
So how does that feel? You help the other new refugee people when they come to this country and without any family.
Yeah.
And sometimes, to be honest, let me tell you, just like how's my feel about you.
Yeah.
I feel like you help us like a big brother.
Yeah.
Just because, you know, you just made that feel for us. Just because you was refugee as well. So you're so different with the one English guy.
Yeah.
So I feel like I have you to tell you my problems.
Yeah.
And then I really feel like you care about us.
Within this project, I've wrestled with the underlying tension of how to navigate hope in the context of crisis, how to support young people to engage with solidarity without uncritically promising brighter futures, how to consider care when the brutality of the asylum system is so deliberately devoid of it, and how I position myself as a researcher, collaborator and editor with a particular perspective on the macro issues we're exploring together. For many unaccompanied minors, their experience is characterised by waiting. Waiting for the social worker to call, waiting for money to arrive, waiting for news from home, waiting for family to drift into the same time zone, waiting, stagnating in the asylum system for months, rarely, or years, often. It is in this space that my research is conducted. It has to happen quickly, in the spaces around the other stuff that's going on, troubling how we think about and enact hope and solidarity. Fleeting moments of connection formed between storyteller and listener, gestures of care between strangers or potential friends. We know you can't sleep because we can't either. Delba Delra Dara, our hearts are on the same path.